I'm in Norfolk, Virginia right now. My brother's library. It's a lot bigger than this. You see, there's a lot of books in here. One book in particular that stuck out to me. My brother wanted to show me, and I've been reading it. General Stanley McChrystal, My Share of the Task, a memoir. He was a commanding general of forces in Afghanistan and Iraq at the end of his career. Of course, he's done a lot more than that. But here's one thing that sticks out to me, and it's very important. And I hope that a lot of young men and young women, middle-aged men, middle-aged women, even old men and women that are watching this video right now, to constantly remind yourself that appearances can be deceiving. And this is an excerpt from the book, page 28. Appearances were deceiving. I was first impressed, then often disappointed by some of the flashiest or most macho leaders in the division. A division is around 20,000 men, I think. Correct me if I'm wrong, but it's about 20,000. And I found that even combat badges were unreliable predictors of knowledge or leadership. Similarly, sloppy appearances and non-military demeanor were not necessarily indicators of flagging professionalism. Such was the lesson when I first joined Charlie Company and met our combat supply sergeant, Sergeant First Class Davis, or Old Dave. A tall combat veteran, Davis had reportedly once been a hard platoon sergeant, but had badly injured his leg in a training jump and now limped painfully along, unable to wear even combat boots. As a result, he was relegated to the supply room and had developed a significant overhanging belly. Think melted ice cream. In his rumpled uniform, low quarter shoes, and constant sheen of sweat, he was the antithesis of a poster paratrooper. And I don't know if you guys know, but paratroopers are the guys that jump out of airplanes in hostile territory. But he was an important part of my practical education, and I had much to learn. A few months after I joined the battalion, Sergeant First Class Davis called me down to a stuffy supply room in the basement of our barracks. Lieutenant Mack, this is back when the general was a lieutenant, a long time ago, back in the 70s. I'm going to teach you something here, he said when I walked in. He thumbed through my platoon's equipment hand receipt, breathing heavily as he spoke. Here's the hand receipt you filled out. See these columns here? Well, I could go here, here, and here, he said, his finger bouncing over the page. And because you signed in the wrong place, you would be responsible for whatever numbers I wrote in. It wasn't a huge mistake, but I had been careless with the form and left myself vulnerable and potentially liable. Now, I could have done that, but I didn't. I was waiting to see if you're a good guy or not, and I have determined you are. I brought you down here to make sure you'll be more careful in the future. Remember, Lieutenant Mack, not everyone in the Army would do that for you. Years later, when relying on intelligence whizzes or speaking with bearded tribal leaders, I'd remember Old Dave, and that leaders don't always look like they stepped off the plane at West Point. Keep that in mind when you see a lot of the articles and science writings and people claiming that peer review is the rubber stamp of approval, and all these degree-seeking people and academics with their high titles and Nobel Prizes. Keep in mind that the appearances can be deceiving, and they are deceiving. Those prizes and titles and badges in the Army and ribbons don't necessarily mean that the person is a leader. Don't be fooled. Sometimes real leaders step up to the plate and don't have what appears to be leadership skills, but they do have what it takes. And you should always keep that in mind. Don't fool yourself into believing in appearances, because they are almost always deceiving if you think about it. All right, you guys. Gonna take it easy in the talks. Sort of on vacation here. Don't really want to do too much work on this theory, but I just thought it was really important to share that. All right, later.